Welcome to a new class for Autocad. Today we're going to discuss new options that we did not discuss before. Overall, we're going to talk about how can we draw an AutoCAD using different layers. We're going to talk about how can we put dimensions, because any drawing it's meaningless without dimensions. We will be also talking about other options that we can use to save some time while we're trying to draw using AutoCAD. So let's get started. The very first option that we want to discuss today is the layers. If you go all the way down to the command line here and you type two letters LA and you hit enter, and as we know, this is the command line that we need to get used to it. Once that is open, it's gonna open a new box for us, as you can see here, and basically we can move that box anywhere here that has the, again, there you go. So this is, it shows us that AutoCAD actually uses different layers to draw. Why do we need that? So in so many cases, if the drawing gets more complicated, we would need to draw at different layers. What does that mean? It means that sometimes, for example, if I have a big drawing and I don't want to show dimensions right uh, on the drawing, if I have a meeting and want to show my boss how to do this or how does it look like. So what I can do, instead of drawing everything on one layer, I can draw the dimensions, for example, on another layer. I can draw maybe the parameter of the picture on, or the drawing on one layer, and the details inside the building is another layer. So again, one of the good things about this, you can deactivate one layer, you can hide one layer, you can show up another layer, or you can even use, every layer has its own properties. Or what does that mean? It means that if I have one layer that draws the lines, the external lines of the buildings, maybe it's thicker, it's with different color, compared to the lines inside. So if you were to draw the full drawing using one single layer, you've got to go back and forth to change the line style and the color and the thickness every time you want to change and shift gears from one line to the other. While if you are using layers, that's not the case. You would define the line properties, the colors, everything basically, and and it will be easy to go back and forth between different layers. So here the default layer is this. The default layer is, I have layer and it's called layer 0, and it has a green color. That means this is the status of this layer is active, and you can change it, or you can add layers. So first of all, here, how can we add layers? So let's get used to those little icons here. So the first one that I want you to learn is new layer. How can I add a new layer? Click on it. So and now it's gonna ask you name that layer for me. Maybe again we can say this is the border layer, and then I'm gonna click enter. And then that border layer, that means if I were to draw a building, and if I want to draw the border of that building with different line properties, I can do that. So how can I change that? Again, if you can turn it on. This is one of the things you can do. You can freeze it. That means it doesn't change, it doesn't go away. You can lock it. This is another factor here. If you click on this, this is locked. That means again, it's the properties of the layer is not going to change, or you can unlock it. The color, which is very important, and that's what we're going to discuss. Let's say again, when I click on the color, and now it's going to open a list of colors that I can specify this line or this layer with. So for example, if I want to pick a orange color, then I'm hit OK. And then the next thing that I can also change or specify for this layer is the line type. So instead of having continuous, I'm gonna double click on it, or maybe load actually, and then I'm gonna look for another type here. For example, I would pick divide, and I'm gonna hit OK, and now I'm gonna use this one instead. So now it changed. Line weight, that's also very important if you want to make a difference. So if you click on this, and since this is the border line, I'm gonna use a thick one, let's say 0.5 millimeters. Gonna hit OK. So another thing also that you need to specify here is the plot. This is very important, and this is one of the main usages of having layers, is whether or not you want to plot, you want to print this layer. As I said, if you are in a meeting, and sometimes depend on the meeting purpose, if you want to show more details inside the building but you don't want to show maybe dimensions, you can click here, and now as you can see here, the plotter is disabled. That means for this layer, if you keep drawing on this layer, it's not going to show up in printing. Um, so again, all these options are available for you. So now, since we created a new layer, so all what you need now is just to click close and start using that layer. And to do so, before, you need to click on this, double click on the new layer that you created. So now the status is the green check mark. That means this is now the active layer, that once you exit this little dialog box, this is the layer that you would be using. So if you click close, and now we start drawing a line, and as expected, so now you are using, so let's say again, this is the external border of the area, and then once you're done, as usual, you click escape. So assume that this is a land that you're buying, and you're planning to build something in it. So this is now the external border. Now if I want to shift gears to layer number 0, which is the default layer, where can I find it? It's right here. So we're still at the home buttons, and it's under layers. So you can go all the way to here, and now you'll be able to see how many layers do you have and you can use. For example, if you click on the top one, so now this is the active one. So if you go to try to draw, for example, a rectangle, try to draw a rectangle here, and guess what? This rectangle now is being drawn using layer 0. Can I add another layer? Yes. How can you do this? You can again type in layer here, LA, and now see, it changed. Every time you pick the certain layer, it becomes the status of it. This is the active one, this is not the active one. You can add new layer with VP frozen in all airports. You can delete a layer, or you can set a current layer. So for example, if I don't like this layer, layer 0, which is the default one, I can go here and click delete. What's important here, you need to remember, before deleting a layer, you need to deactivate it, or you need to select another layer as an active layer. So, and that's what's the note is saying. So if you double click on that layer, you go back to layer 0, you hit delete, and now it's going to say the selected layer wasn't deleted. What's the other reason? The other reason for not deleting the layer, because there are the following layers can be deleted, because layer 0 and the finishing points, it's the current layer, the layer containing objects. So if I used this layer to draw something, it won't allow me. So before doing so, you need to go back, close this box, and go here and delete the rectangle. Once now it's deleted, you can go back to the layers, you can go to here, and again, still one of the things also that I wanted to mention, that layer 0 in specific, most of the time AutoCAD doesn't allow you to delete it. So what am I gonna do? I'm gonna create a new layer, and that's now internal layer, and let's say the color of that is blue, and I'm gonna make this one active for now. I'm gonna exit this. Let's draw a circle this time. Okay, so this is now using the internal layer. Now how about if I'm not interested in the external layer? First I need to delete all the objects. So what I can do here, I can delete 1, 2, 3, and 4. So now nothing is drawn using the external layer, so I can now go to LA and I set the active layer for the internal one, and now I click on the border layer, click delete, and now it's deleted. So this was again a live example showing you that layer number 0, this is the default layer, it doesn't get deleted. If you want to delete a layer that you created, you've got to deactivate it, or you've got to make the another layer active, and that can be done by double clicking on another layer. And you've got to make sure that nothing is drawn using the layer that you're intending to delete. So those are the main concepts behind layers. I'm gonna create a new layer again, and I'm gonna call it outer layer, and I will select the color to be red, hit OK, and the line weight, I'm gonna make it a little bit thicker, let's say 1 millimeter, and then I'm gonna even make that this is the active layer. I'm gonna close this. I'm gonna now draw a rectangle, as this is the outside border of the building. It's pretty thick, the thickness of that line. Now I'm gonna show you how can I hide one of the layers versus the other. So here, once you click on all the layers, I have layer 0, I have internal layer, I have outer layer. Then now I can say, okay, I want to turn this layer off. Once you turn it off, anything drawn using this layer is not shown anymore, or you can bring it back on. So those are again the options related to layers, and you can keep playing with it. I encourage you to go to again layers and play with those ones. Even here, if you have a plotter at your home, if you just wanna click unplot for one of the layers and go and print it, you will definitely see that the picture that was printed is layer 0 and the internal layer, but the outer layer, since you deactivated the plot, is not gonna print it. Okay, that's about layers. And now let's shift gears to another aspect that or another option that we did not discuss before. This option has to do with the drafting. So we're gonna get back to drafting, and this option is called fillet. So most of the time when we draw any or when we design any particular element, for example a table or a chair, we try not to have a very sharp edges for safety issues. Little children, again, they want to hit it. It's again, if they have a very sharp edges, that will make life sometimes harder in case again someone is not paying attention and you hit it, and again it would be hazardous situation. So to do so, there is an option in AutoCAD to do that for us. So once you create a very sharp angle, edges I mean, then AutoCAD can modify that by your definition of what's the radius of that fillet. So there is fillet and there is chamfer. So fillet again will make that curvature is around curvature. Chamfer, this is again bevels the edges of objects. So I can cut it like the way it looks here, or it can be a curvature. Fillet also is used when we design roadways. So when we design roadways, especially intersections, we do not design them as a very sharp edges. We try to have certain curvature, otherwise the accident rates can be increased. So let's try to do this. So I'm gonna try to plot an intersection. So that would be uh, again, since I want to draw something okay, so let's say the length of that is 3, and the angle is 90, then another 3, and the angle here is 0, and I go back here to 3, and the angle is 90, 3, the angle is 180. Basically again, pretty much I'm building or drawing across 3, the angle is 90, 3, and the angle is 80, 3, 90, 3, 90, getting close, 3, 0 angle, 3 with 90, and then I can connect this. Okay, so that is an intersection, and by the way I'm using the outer layer. So this intersection here, and instead of having those sharp edges, now I'm interested to introduce a fillet. So how can I, what's the order for it, or what's, in case you can't find the icon, the command line can be used, and all what you need to type is just an F letter, and now it says fillet. Select first corner, so, or first object. So I'm gonna select now, this is one side of the intersection, and then it says select now the second object. This is the second object. One more time. So we go to play, and then we select the first object, and then we need to specify the radius. Let's say the radius here is 0.75, and then we select the second object, and now the curvature is there. So one reminder here, as you could see, that once you put first, you select the first object, and then you need to put the radius. What's the radius of that curvature? So we specify 0.75. Let's do it again. I go to the command line, I type F, and then you select the first object, and then you click on the radius, and it will remember from last time, but it's worthwhile to double check. You put 0.75, you select the second, same thing, you can keep repeating by clicking enter. You select the first, and then you select the second, you click enter to repeat the same. Select the first and second, and now all of a sudden you have a very nice intersection without a very sharp edges. So this is how we do fillet. We can also, as I said, we can do a chamfer. If you can't find the icon, the two icons are under the same location, fillet or chamfer, you can click the other one. Or if you don't find it, you can click skip, and the command for this option is CHA. So now, instead of using an angle, I can use a distance or an angle or trim. So let's try to use that option. So first I'm gonna undo what I did. So in order to have a sharp edge intersection again, and now I'm gonna go to the command chamfer, CHA, and I'm gonna select the first line, and now I need to select the distance. So I need to cut the distance here, let's say 0.5. Then now it says specify the second chamfer distance, because I can cut certain distance from the first line, and that cut can be different for the second line. For example, I can keep it the same, which that's what I'm gonna do here, 0.5. I'm gonna now select the second line, and here you go. It's now cut, and I had that chamfer 0.5 feet from this side and 0.5 feet from the other side. Let's do different distances based on each line. So I'm gonna click chamfer again, CHA, and now I'm gonna select the first line, and I'm gonna click on the distance. I'm gonna say yes, the first line I'm gonna cut 0.5, but from the second line I'm gonna cut 1. And then it asks me to select the second line, and here you go. As you can see, there is a difference. This is here from this line I cut half, but from the vertical line I cut 1. It depends on the design, but again I wanted to explain this to you so it's available for you. One last time. So it's CHA. I can select the first line. I can specify the distance. Now let's even put it as 1.5, and the second one is only 0.5. So to see the difference, click this again. The difference is even much more. I had to cut 1.5 from the vertical line, but only half from the horizontal line. That's another option that again you can use at your leisure. Now we're gonna discuss other options. I'm looking here through my notes. What do we need to cover next? Another option that we tend to use a lot is scaling. What does that mean? Scaling is if I have a certain picture or drawing, I can scale it up or down. And instead of redrawing it, I can use that scale. In so many cases, you would use certain scale to draw your drawing, and then all of a sudden you are asked to put this in a new border scale, or the scale is being changed. And instead of maybe at your company you're using 1 to 100 inches. 1 inch in the drawing is equal to 100 inches in the real life. Maybe now you want to shift that scale. So if you don't have that option, what you need to do is to redraw the entire drawing again, and that's painful. So in order to avoid that, there is an option to scale either again smaller, to scale it in or out the entire picture. So where can I find scaling? It's very close to where we were, so it's right here. This is the scale option. In case you can't find this option here, or the icon, always learn to know the command for that option, which is SC. If you go to the command line and click SC, that's the scale. So once you click scale, now AutoCAD is expecting you to select the object that you want to scale, either to a smaller size or the bigger size. So let's select now the intersection that we just designed. I'm gonna select the whole thing. Okay, so I selected now the intersection. Once I do this, you need to click enter, and then now it says specify a base point. A base point again, just as a reference point. So I'll use this point as a base point. Now take a look at this here. So it can enlarge or make it smaller depending on specify the scale factor. AutoCAD now is expecting you to specify, as you could see here, you want to multiply this original size by what? By 0.5. That means you're gonna bring this scale to half, or you multiply by 2. So let's say 0.75. Click enter. Now the entire picture gets scaled down by 75% of the original shape. How about now if I want to enlarge it? You're just going to go back to command line SC. You need to specify the objects again and hit enter. You select the base point. Again, the base point can be any point basically. And then you would now you want to say, okay, I want to use 2. I want to double the size. I want to double the scale. And now it's doubled. So I think again it's another handy dimensioning as well as a drafting tool that I think you would like to use it in the future. Okay, another command that we also like to use is explode. Again, the command sounds dramatic, but the whole point behind this command is if you were drawing one big drawing and that big drawing is now as one piece, and all of a sudden you are asked to delete one little element from it. If it's one piece, you can't do this. If you click on it, it's gonna be as one piece. So what you need to do is to explode it. That means you would bring this object into its original elements. It's gonna break it into little lines here and there, so you can select on certain line that you're not interested to have anymore and delete it easily while keeping the rest of the drawing without any harm. So how can we do this? First of all, let's just delete everything and start over. So let's go to the polyline. Again, this is a revision. Polyline, let's say again I was interested to draw something random like this. So this is here again. Let's say I drew this and it's on the outer layer as a reminder, and now I'm interested to delete one of these lines. So as you could see here, if you click on anywhere here, it's one piece. I can't delete one line at a time. So in order to do so, I have to explode the graph. How can I do this? You can click on the icon if you can see it, which is right here. This is explode. It basically breaks a compound object into its components objects. If you can't find the icon, you can go to the command line, and the command for this one is simply X, just letter X. Once you click that, again now Autocad is expecting you to select what's the object that you want to explode. You're going to click on it, and you click enter, and voila, it's now broken into pieces. So if I want to delete this line in particular, I'm going to go here and delete it, and it's deleted. So I think it's a nice option that you can use in the future in case again you want to delete one element out of so many, instead of just deleting the whole thing and starting from scratch. Okay, moving on to a new topic. As I mentioned at the beginning of today's lecture, so far we've been drawing things. We got to learn how to draw a line, a polyline, circle, arc, rectangle. How can I modify things by copying, pasting, chamfer, fillet, scaling up, scaling down, exploding things or erasing things, or rotating things. But a drawing without dimensions on it, it's pretty meaningless. So part of today's lesson, we would like to learn how to put dimensions on the graph. So how to do this? First of all, again, to get to know what's the dimension style or where to find it, all what you need to do to go to the command line and type D and hit enter. So this is gonna open up for you the dimension style manager. There is different styles that you can use for dimensions. You can start your own one, or you can modify the current one. So for example, if you click modify on the standard one, it's gonna open up a new tab for you, and this tab here is gonna specify for you what all the properties around the dimensions. For example, the color. As you can see here, the nice thing, it has a little preview screen here, so whatever changes that you're making in the dimension style, it's gonna be reflected right on here. So for example, if you want to change the color of the dimension lines to yellow, now this is the color for the lines, just the lines. As we're gonna see, the dimensions, there are so many elements in the dimensions, including lines, symbols and arrows and text. And the good thing again, it's gonna be reflected right here. Line type. What line type I'm gonna use? Continuous, divide. So let's click, let's say continuous. Line weight. Let's say I'm gonna use 0.9 millimeters. And then baseline spacing. Baseline spacing, again, you can increase this or you can decrease it. Let's say we can put 0.1. I'm gonna let you know again, search what does that mean, the baseline spacing. This is again a little homework for you to know. Then extension lines. Extension lines, you can make this as red and you're gonna get to know what's the extension line. Those are the extension lines right here. And then you can change the line type, you can change the line weight. Let's say here it's 0.5 millimeters thinner, and then extend it beyond dimension lines. This is again extra options. I'll let you again get to know it, but I'm gonna move forward to the symbols and arrows. So here is the arrowheads. I have the first arrowhead, the second arrowhead, and any dimensions, and I get the chance using Autocad to select the type of that arrowhead. Most of the time it's a closed field, but you can say closed blank, or it can be dot, it can be a box, but I still prefer the closed field. Same thing for the second arrowhead. You can change it sometimes. Most of the time the first and second arrowhead, they have the same properties, but again it's up to you. And the leader, that's closed field. Then the arrow size, this is very important. Arrow size, let's say here I want to have arrow size 0.25. Now the arrow size is increasing. Let's say I'm going to bring it back to 0.1 or 0.15. So you can keep changing that. Center marks, that's also important. Dimension break, or the size of the break size, let's say 0.2. Arc length, line jog dimension. So many factors here that you can play with. Then the text. The text, because it's not just about the arrows that you're having, also there will be a text showing the length or the angle of that dimension. So you can select the standard way, or you can select, again, this is the style, you can change that. You can change the color here, for example, Times New Roman, and the font style, bold, if you want to have that, the height of the font itself, the width factor, how do you want to widen this or not. For example, here if you put 2, you're gonna widen this, as you can see here, and put 0.5 to make it, if you don't have a space in the drawing and you want to squeeze in the dimension, you can put 0.5, it's gonna get squeezed in, or you can leave the width factor as 1, which is the regular thing to do in most of the cases. So as you can see, again, there's so many factors. Text placement. Do you want to put, when it comes to vertical, is it centered or above or outside? Horizontal, same thing. View direction. So all these are options for you to change as you may seem liking it. So many of those again, but most of the time we typically play with the lines, symbols and arrows and the text. So once I'm done with this and I'm happy with it, I'm just gonna click OK. And once that is also done, you're gonna click close. Then now you want to use that dimension style. So there are so many types of dimensions. The very first one, which is very famous, is the linear dimension. The linear dimension, how can you get that? Is you go to the command line and type DLI, and this is the linear dimension. It's going to give you the horizontal dimension from one point to the other point, not the exact length of that line. It's the linear line, the horizontal line, or the vertical. For example, once I typed DLI, now AutoCAD is asking me to specify the first extension line. This is the first point, and ask me now to the second extension line. That's the second point, and as you can see, now we're using the style that we specified. Now we can zoom in if we desire, but or maybe we can change some of the options here. So let's say I'm gonna go back to, so if you double click, by the way, here it's gonna open up again. How does it look like? And we're gonna talk about this in a little bit, but before that, let's go back to the dimension again, D. I'm gonna modify it. I need to enlarge the text. Let's say 0.5. Okay, close, and now the color and the font of the text is morphed. So this is the linear dimension. Linear dimension, again, even if the line has some inclination, this gives you the horizontal dimension or the vertical dimension between 2 points. Let's use it again. DLI. You hit enter, you specify the first corner, specify the second corner, and then again it can, if you move it right or left, it's going to give you the linear vertical distance, or if you move it upward or downward, it's going to give you the linear horizontal distance between the 2 points. So I can do it once. I want to do it again. I click first corner, I click second corner, and now I move right or left to give me that. So the distance or the dimension between these two corners vertically is 11.0216, horizontally is 3.1258. So this is the linear dimension, which is the most famous type of dimensions, by the way. Another option for dimensions is the radius. So many times, as we talked about before, we draw circles. For example, I want to draw a circle, and let's use a different layer. Let's use layer 0. So I'm going to use a circle. I'm going to draw it using layer okay, I'm going to draw a circle, and let's say as we got to run the radius, let's say it's 2. So that's circle right here. How can now I put a dimension? One of the famous dimensions for a circle is either a radius or a diameter. So to put the radius on, you can go to the command line and type DRA, dimension, RA radius, and now AutoCAD is expecting to select circle for it to specify its radius. So we click on it, and now the radius as expected. You just move it. You're just gonna keep moving the mouse wherever you want until you feel comfortable, and click, and it's there. R meaning the radius, and it's 2.0000. That's how we do it. So where do we get it again? It's the dimensions, and you would put here, as I said, DRA. That's the command for the radius. It can be for an arc, it can be for a circle. For example, if I want to draw an arc real quickly, and this is an arc. Again, an arc is a part of or a piece of a circle. It's not a full circle. I can also use the same dimension command to give me some information about this arc. So I can say DRA and say select an arc or a circle. I'm selecting an arc this time, and the same thing. So the radius of this arc is r 4.5756. Okay. How about if you wanna draw, or you wanna put a dimension for the diameter, not the radius? So let's remove this. Let's remove the dimension. One interesting thing here, without realizing, as you can see, this layer is locked. That's why it's not allowing me to delete. So all you need to do is to unlock it. Once it's unlocked, now I can delete things. If it's locked, you can't delete it. So if you click now on it, now it's gone. You want to delete this, it's gone. So it's a good practical example here for using layers. If you want to lock it, that means nothing is going to be deleted from it. So now I want to put the dimension for the radius. What the command for it is di. And now this is select an arc or a circle. I'm going to select this one here, and now this is one of the this is the way we define the diameter. It's phi 4.001. It's again it's Latin letter 4.000. I mean Greek. Same thing for the arc. I can say DDI. Click enter. Select the arc, and the diameter is shown as this 9.1511. So it's DDI. Okay. How about if you don't like the style of the linear dimension like this, you might be interested to know what's the dimension of the exact length of this element. I'm not interested in the vertical distance between this point and this point, neither the horizontal distance. I'm interested in the aligned dimension, which is the true length of that element. So yes, there is an option in Autocad. So let's do this. So we call it aligned dimension. It's DAL. Once you click on it, you're going to select the first corner, you're going to select the second corner, and here we go. This is the align. This means it's going to show you the parallel line for the line of interest, and it's going to tell you the exact length for that element. So that's aligned. So one more time, if I want to do it for what we did here before, let me first delete this. So we delete it, and now I want to do the aligned one again. So it's DAL, dimension, aligned. Then you select the first corner, you select the second corner, and there you go. That's another way to put dimensions. Okay. How about angles? So many times again, there's always angles between every two consecutive lines, and I may be interested to know the angle, or to put a dimension for that angle between each two lines. So there is a way to do this, and you can do it using this command: d dimension an angle. So now we need to select a line, first line, second line, and there you go. There is a 71 degrees between these two lines. Okay, let's do it again. D, I go to the command line, D angle. I'm gonna select these two lines, and I can select this angle, which is 151 degrees, or I can select the outside angle, either or. So it's 151 degrees. This is the angle. Third time, DN, between this line and that line, the angle here is 79 degrees. Another option to do for dimension. Okay, so many options, as you could tell. Another option under the dimensions is quick dimensions. Sometimes again, instead of doing one item at a time, it can show you I can have one option that can give you a quick dimension. This is here a quick dimension. So this is, if you click on this icon here, this is just dimension, start dimension command, and you can click any from any point to the other point, and it's gonna give you a quick dimension between these two lines. How about now if you click, double click, okay, so one thing now I want you to learn is if you double click on the dimension font itself, or the dimension line, is going to open up a new tab for you. This new tab can allow you to even modify what you specified before. You can add columns, you can add symbols, you can change the layer, you can change the font size. All this is available for you by simply by double clicking on any of those dimensions. So one more time, click escape. If you're interested in this line, double click on it. It's gonna open up that for you. You can change anything. You can change the height of the line. You can add commands. You can edit the dimensions. So in dictionaries, you can look up something in the dictionary. You can use the ruler. So many options under this command. How about another option or another command? So please go to the command line and type QDIM, quick dimension. So quick dimension again is another way to come up with a quick dimension for any line. So if you click here, select geometry to dimension. I'm selecting this line, and then click enter. Here it shows you directly in a very quick way the length of this line vertically. I can do the same thing, quick dimension for the same line. Click enter, and I want to do it the horizontal one. So again, this is another option you can use instead of the linear dimension. Arc dimensions. Going back to the arc that we drew, how about if I'm not interested in the diameter, neither the radius, I'm interested in the length of that arc. So what I can do here is I can go here and say DAR, dimension of an arc, select an arc, and there you go. It shows me that the length of that arc is 16.9407. One more time, I can go here and say dimension of an arc, select the arc, and again it can show you the length from one point to the other point. So if I were to delete this and type in again, sometimes you may not be interested in the length of the overall arc, you might be interested in segment of it. So dimension of an arc, this is the arc here. Again, you can specify from this point all the way to here, and that's the overall length of the arc, which is 16.9407. Or you can say escape. I want to do a part of it, dimension of an arc. And first I need to select the item from here. Well, now it's giving me the overall length only, but dimension of an arc. I think just give us the overall length, but I think you can look up again. There might be an option to also look for the part of the arc, but you got the point that I want to try to see. Another types of dimensions that we wanna also keep working on and introduce you to, those are now So far what we discussed, those are basic dimensioning, but also there are other types of dimensioning that can be more advanced, and those ones actually are, some of them are we call associative dimensions. So what I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna delete the dimensions that we had so far, and I'll show you another type of dimensions. In so many cases, when you start drawing, for example, an out layer border of the picture, and now you want to start measuring the dimension from one benchmark. I think it's gonna make more sense now when I delete everything and start over. If I am interested to measure the dimension of that shape from one single point, and it's gonna keep accumulating. For example, if I want to measure the distance from this point to here, and I want to measure the cumulative distance from this to here, from this to there, how can I do this? I can use what we call the associative dimension. So if you go to the command line and type DRE, now it's gonna tell you select the objects. I want to select one object, but one thing that I want to mention first here, you need to have at least one dimension before you do the associative one. So I'm gonna do dimension from this point to that point, or let's do the linear one, dimension linear, like what we did at the beginning between these 2 points. Okay, so assume I have one linear dimension. How can I build on it now? So if you go to dimension, the associative dimension DRE, say select an object, and now we would like to know what's the dimension. Oops. Let's try again. This is DRE, select object. The object is actually, it has to be a dimension, and then you hit enter, and then you specify the second extension, and it shows you again another dimension. But another way of doing this, let's scratch that, let's try the other style, which is the continuous dimension, DCO. So yeah, that's what I want to discuss. So the continuous dimension, now you have to have first one dimension to start up with, but then it keeps continuing depending on the point of interest. So if you click that option, now it's going to show you that the distance now from this point to this point, 9.516. If I go all the way to here, it's 15.108. If I want to continue to here, it's 3.1258. This is the continuous dimension. So how can I do it from the vertical perspective? Let's do it one more time. So I can go to here and I click DCO. But as I said, so to start up with, you need to have one vertical dimension to build on it. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna delete those ones to clear the picture, and then now I'm gonna plot the first dimension, and that will be a linear dimension, the linear dimension, and I'm gonna select this point and this point. Okay, so this is the first linear vertical direction. Now I'm gonna build on it continuously. So I'm gonna say DCO, and now I need to go to this point. Now the distance is 11.026 from this corner to that corner. Now I'm gonna go to here, and here I'm done. So the first distance 1.1353, and then the second distance and the third distance. Or you can do what we call a baseline dimension. Baseline dimension, and instead of having the length as you see here like discrete dimensions, so from here to here is 1.1353, and then from there to here is 11 point something, you can have cumulative ones. So how can you do this? You can type DBA and hit enter, and now as you can see it's all cumulative. So you can start from this point to this point. Well, let's remove the first type first, otherwise we always get things mixed up. So let's delete. But always again you've got to have one base. Okay, so now let's try this again. So I'm gonna type DBA baseline. Yeah, select this, and now it's gonna be cumulative. This point up to this point. Take a look at this here. Now this is the baseline, and start 11.0216 until here. But if you continue from this point all the way to the top, it's 16.5087. So let's delete them again. Do it one more time. Go to here to the command line. You put the baseline, which is DBA. Hit enter. Now again you start measuring from one point, and you keep just moving until you are done. You can do the same thing, by the way, in the horizontal direction, and why not, let's do it. So let's delete this entirely and do the baseline dimensioning and the horizontal direction. So I will need first to draw the linear dimensioning. DLI, select an object, I'm going to select the first, second. Well, let's delete it so we can have all the way in the back. So all the way so DL, the linear dimension. We're gonna select the first corner. I'm gonna select the second corner and drop it all the way down to here. Okay. Now let's do the baseline dimension. So I'm gonna type DBA, and as you can see, it starts to recognize that. Okay, now I wanna measure dimensions from that baseline. I'm gonna keep doing this for this corner. I'm gonna keep this for this corner. That just keep changing, moving your mouse, and you're done. Okay, so as you can see, we have 5.3044 from here to there. So this is your baseline, and everything else is being measured from that baseline all the way to here. So now we would get to know the distance from the baseline to this corner, to this corner, to that corner, third and fifth, all the way till the end. So the overall length from the far east to the far west is 33.0580. If you're not happy with the distances, again, always you can move them. So you click on it and drag it down. Same thing here. So that can be changed. If you don't like again the color or the font, as we got to learn, you just double click on the dimension itself, and it's gonna open up for you. You can change the font. Let's say you're interested in 0.75 and you want to save changes. You say, let's say I want to, and again double click on it one more time. I think again this is because all of them are under one system, but you can go to edit the dimension and change that. But basically these are the all the different types of dimensions that you can face. So we got to learn today different options related to the dimensions. You can do linear dimension, you can do for the arc, for the radius, continuous dimension, baseline dimensions. Different types of dimensions are really required depending on the need. So with that, again, today we finished two major topics. How can I draw on different layers on Autocad, and the usage of it. Again, you can deactivate one layer, you can hide it, you can freeze it, or you can not print. You can print one layer, not the others. And we got to learn that a picture or a drawing without dimension is meaningless. But the style of the dimension, we got to learn how to modify the dimensions. It's all about the text and the arrows and the lines. And then depending on the drawing, if you want to put a continuous dimension or baseline dimension or linear dimension or different or all the other types of dimensions. With that, we finish today's lesson, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so much. Bye bye.